Your soulmate is saying, please open this. Before I make the biggest decision of my life. My beloved child. Your soulmate has reached a moment they can no longer postpone, and before they make what could become the biggest decision of their life, there is something they desperately want you to understand. They have replayed the same question in their mind again and again. Do I finally follow what my heart has been telling me, or do I walk toward a completely different future? What makes this moment so powerful is that their decision is not simply about themselves. Somehow, you are at the center of it. They have been remembering conversations, small moments, unfinished words, and even the times when silence seemed to say more than either of you could explain. But one particular realization changed everything. Don't skip, because the reason they are hesitating is not what you might expect. They are not confused about whether you matter. They are wondering whether they still have enough time to tell you just how much you matter before everything changes. Something happened recently that forced them to look at their future differently. It wasn't dramatic on the outside. In fact, someone standing beside them might not have noticed anything unusual at all. But internally, one simple question stopped them cold. If I choose this new direction, will I always wonder what could have happened with you? That question followed them everywhere. Suddenly, memories they thought they had placed safely in the past began returning with completely different meaning. A moment when you showed unexpected kindness. A conversation they ended too quickly. Something you said casually that they remembered much longer than you realized. Piece by piece, they began seeing a pattern. Stay till the end, because there is one detail they still haven't admitted openly. Your soulmate had been convincing themselves that moving forward without addressing their feelings would be easier. Now they know the opposite may be true. And that realization has brought them to a choice they never expected to face. Here is where everything becomes more complicated. Your soulmate has already taken the first step toward that major decision, but they stopped before making it final. Something inside them said, not yet. There is one thing left unfinished. That unfinished thing is connected directly to you. They want clarity before choosing their next chapter, because they have finally understood that making a permanent decision while carrying an unanswered question about you could become something they regret for years. Something huge is waiting for you, because the question they want answered is much deeper than, do you still think about me? They want to know whether the connection they felt was ever as meaningful to you as it became to them. And there is another truth beneath that question, one they have protected carefully because saying it aloud would change the entire situation. Your soulmate knows exactly what they would choose if they discovered one specific thing about your feelings, and that is the secret they are getting dangerously close to revealing. What your soulmate discovered next made their decision suddenly feel impossible to ignore. They realized they had been measuring your connection by what was said openly, while overlooking everything that was communicated through actions. The patience. The unexpected understanding. The moments when you could have completely turned away but somehow left the door slightly open. And now they are questioning whether those moments meant more than they originally believed. Don't skip, because this is where their entire perspective begins changing. They had prepared themselves to choose a future that looked sensible from the outside, yet one thought kept interrupting every plan. What if the person I'm trying to move forward without is actually the person I was supposed to speak honestly with first? That question became impossible to silence. And instead of making their final decision, they started searching through memories for one answer they had somehow missed. Then came the detail that changed the emotional weight of everything. Your soulmate remembered one particular moment between you, a moment that seemed ordinary when it happened but feels completely different now. Maybe it was something you said. Maybe it was the way you responded when they expected you to pull away. Whatever it was, they suddenly understood that you may have been protecting feelings you never fully expressed. Stay till the end, because that possibility has made them reconsider what they were about to choose. They began wondering whether both of you had been waiting for the other person to become brave first. And if that is true, then the distance between you was never proof that the connection disappeared. It may have been two people standing on opposite sides of the same unanswered question. That realization has given your soulmate a new idea. Before deciding anything permanent, they want to find out whether there is still something real waiting between you. But there is one more layer they haven't revealed, and this is why they are asking you to open this before they make their choice. Your soulmate has quietly imagined two versions of their future. In one, they continue with the decision already placed in front of them and accept that your story remains unfinished. In the other, they finally say what they have been holding back and risk discovering the truth. Something huge is waiting for you, because they have stopped asking which path is easier. Now they are asking which path they could live with without looking backward. And somewhere inside that question, they reached an unexpected conclusion. If there is even a small possibility that you feel what they have been feeling, they cannot make this decision without knowing. But before they approach you, there is one final sign they are looking for, and what they have chosen as that sign could completely change what happens next. The sign your soulmate is waiting for is much simpler than you would imagine, yet to them it could answer everything. They are not expecting some enormous declaration or perfect moment. They are looking for one small indication that the door between you has not completely closed. Why? Because they have finally admitted something to themselves. Their biggest hesitation was never about making the wrong decision. It was about making that decision without giving your connection one honest chance to speak for itself. Don't skip, because this realization has already changed the way they see you. They once assumed your silence meant certainty. Now they are wondering whether your silence carried the same uncertainty as theirs. And suddenly, moments they had dismissed are beginning to look like clues. But one memory stands above all the others, because it suggests you may have understood their feelings long before they understood them themselves. That memory keeps returning at the strangest times. Your soulmate remembers looking at you during a moment when neither of you needed many words, and something about your response stayed with them. Back then, they pushed the feeling aside. Now it has become impossible to ignore. They are asking themselves why that single moment remained so clear when so many other memories faded. Stay till the end, because the answer they reached surprised even them. Perhaps they remembered it because some part of them already knew your story was unfinished. That thought changed the question completely. Instead of asking, "Should I move on?" they began asking, "What exactly am I moving on from if we never truly discovered what this could become?" And once that question appeared, the decision waiting in front of them suddenly stopped feeling final. Your soulmate began considering something they had previously been too hesitant to do: tell you the truth before choosing anything else. But the truth they want to reveal goes deeper than simply admitting that you still matter. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate has realized that the future they were preparing to choose was partly built around an assumption about you. An assumption they now suspect could be completely wrong. They believed you had already emotionally closed this chapter. They believed reaching toward you would only reopen something you had peacefully left behind. Yet recently, a small detail challenged that entire belief, and they haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Now their biggest decision has been temporarily placed on hold while they reconsider everything. There is just one question left before they decide whether to finally approach you. Was that detail merely coincidence, or was it the confirmation they had secretly been hoping to find? Because if their interpretation is right, the next choice they make may not take them away from you at all. That tiny detail has now become impossible for your soulmate to dismiss. It was something connected to the way you responded when your connection seemed uncertain. A small reaction that suggested you had never become as emotionally distant as they assumed. At first, they told themselves not to read too much into it. But then another memory surfaced, and suddenly the pieces began fitting together. You had never actually given them the clear ending they convinced themselves existed. Much of that ending had been created by assumptions, timing, and things neither of you said. Don't skip, because this is where their biggest decision begins shifting. Your soulmate is realizing they may have been preparing to walk toward a completely different future because they misunderstood your silence. And now one question is following them everywhere: what if I leave without ever discovering what that silence really meant? That question pushed them toward something new. Instead of immediately making their decision, they imagined finally speaking to you without hiding behind uncertainty. No complicated explanation. No pretending the connection meant less than it did. Just one honest conversation about what remained unfinished. Stay till the end, because while imagining that conversation, your soulmate discovered something important about themselves. They weren't afraid of hearing your answer nearly as much as they were afraid of never asking the question. That difference changed everything. Suddenly, clarity became more important than protecting themselves from uncertainty. They began thinking about what they would say first, and surprisingly, it wasn't some dramatic confession. It was a simple question: did I misunderstand what happened between us? Because if the answer is yes, then the decision waiting in front of them may have been built on a story that was never completely true. And now the clock inside their mind feels louder. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has given themselves one final boundary. They will not make this life-changing choice until they understand what your connection actually meant. But there is something you still don't know. The decision they are considering carries an opportunity that may not remain available forever, which is why they originally felt pressured to choose quickly. Yet instead of rushing, they have paused. They would rather risk losing an opportunity than spend years wondering whether they walked away from something more meaningful without understanding it. And tonight, their thoughts have moved beyond wondering. They have started forming an actual plan to get the answer they need from you. The surprising part is how they intend to do it, because rather than revealing everything immediately, they have chosen one carefully worded question that could tell them exactly where your heart stands. The question your soulmate has chosen sounds almost ordinary, but they know your answer could change everything. If we had one chance to speak honestly about what happened between us, would you take it? They have repeated those words silently, changing them, simplifying them, then returning to the same version. Because they are not trying to pressure you into giving them the answer they want. They are trying to discover whether the door they thought was closed was ever truly locked. Don't skip, because something shifted the moment they formed that question. For the first time, their biggest decision stopped feeling like something happening to them. They realized they still had a choice, and before choosing a new direction, they could finally confront the unfinished truth between you. But there is a reason they haven't asked you yet. Your soulmate wants to be completely certain about what they will do if your answer is yes. And that possibility has forced them to become unusually honest with themselves. They imagined hearing you say that you would take that conversation, and immediately they knew what would happen next. The other decision would have to wait. Not disappear. Not automatically be abandoned. But wait long enough for both of you to speak without assumptions standing between you. Stay till the end, because your soulmate has finally understood that they were trying to make a permanent choice while still carrying an unanswered emotional question. They cannot do that anymore. They want to know what you remember. What you misunderstood. What you wanted to say but never did. Most importantly, they want to tell you why they stepped back when part of them actually wanted to move closer. And hidden inside that explanation is a revelation you probably never expected. The distance you noticed was not created because their feelings became smaller. It began because those feelings became harder for them to ignore. Now everything comes down to timing. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has moved closer than ever to actually reaching out. They have imagined the conversation. They have chosen the opening question. They have even decided that if you give them one clear sign of openness, they will stop hiding behind the story they have been telling themselves. But before that happens, another truth has surfaced. The major opportunity behind their life-changing decision comes with a deadline, and they cannot remain undecided forever. That means the next move matters more than any of the hesitation that came before it. Your soulmate must either seek the truth about you or accept that the question may follow them into their next chapter. And just when they thought they knew which direction they would choose, they remembered something you once said, something that could completely change how they approach you now. The words you once said came back to your soulmate with completely new meaning. Sometimes people wait so long for the perfect moment that they lose the only moment they actually needed. At the time, they never imagined those words would eventually describe them. Now they cannot stop thinking about them. They have spent so much time waiting for certainty, certainty about you, certainty about themselves, certainty about the future, that they almost made their biggest decision without ever asking the one question capable of giving them real clarity. Don't skip, because this memory has changed their approach. They no longer want to test you with hints or hide behind carefully controlled silence. They want one genuine conversation. And for the first time, they are considering telling you why this decision became so complicated the moment your name entered their thoughts. Here is the truth they have finally admitted. The opportunity waiting for them could change the direction of their life, but accepting it may also create distance between the life they know now and the life they are about to enter. That is why everything suddenly feels urgent. Your soulmate thought they could simply choose the practical path and trust that unanswered feelings would eventually fade. Instead, the closer they came to saying yes, the clearer those feelings became. Stay till the end, because they discovered something while imagining themselves months into that new future. They could picture the opportunities. They could picture the changes. But when they imagined looking back, one question remained painfully unfinished: why didn't I speak to you when I still had the chance? That was the moment they stopped treating your connection like a memory and started treating it like something that deserved an answer. And now your soulmate has made a smaller decision before the biggest one. They will not choose their next chapter based on fear, assumptions, or silence. Something huge is waiting for you, because this means the conversation they kept postponing is moving closer. They have even decided what they need to tell you after asking that first question. They want you to know that their distance was never meant to erase what existed between you. They want to explain why they hesitated, what they misunderstood, and what they secretly hoped you would notice without being told. But one final piece still remains hidden. Before reaching out, your soulmate discovered that the deadline surrounding their major decision is closer than they originally believed. Suddenly, there is almost no room left for hesitation. And instead of making them run toward the easier choice, that deadline has pushed them toward a completely unexpected move. One that could finally put the truth directly in front of you. The unexpected move your soulmate is considering is no longer just another thought they can postpone. They have decided that before the deadline arrives, they need to create one unmistakable moment of honesty between you. Not a vague hint. Not another silence that leaves both of you guessing. They want to say enough for you to understand why they paused such a major life decision in the first place. Don't skip, because this is where their reasoning becomes clear. Your soulmate finally recognizes that the answer they need cannot be found by replaying old memories forever. It has to come from the present. From you. And strangely, realizing this has made them calmer. They are no longer trying to predict your response. They are preparing themselves to accept the truth, whatever it may be. Yet beneath that calmness is one hope they still cannot completely hide. That when they finally open this conversation, you will recognize how long they have been trying to find the courage to have it. But something else happened while they were preparing those words. They asked themselves a question they had avoided for far too long: if the deadline disappeared tomorrow, what would I actually choose? The answer came faster than expected. They would choose clarity with you before choosing anything else. Stay till the end, because that realization exposed the real problem. The opportunity itself was never what confused them. Their unfinished connection with you was. They had been trying to compare two futures when one of those futures had never been fully explored. And now they understand why every attempt to make the final choice felt incomplete. There was still a conversation missing. There was still a truth unspoken. Most importantly, there was still a possibility they had never allowed themselves to examine honestly. That is why your soulmate is saying, please open this. They are not asking you to decide their future for them. They simply refuse to make the biggest decision of their life while pretending you were never part of the equation. Now they are closer to reaching out than they have ever been, and one final realization is guiding their next move. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has decided they will not begin by asking what you want from them. First, they intend to tell you what they finally understand. They want to admit that they misread certain moments, allowed assumptions to become conclusions. The new information changed the timeline completely. Your soulmate believed they still had enough time to think, organize their feelings, and choose the perfect moment to speak with you. Now they know the final answer about their opportunity may be required much sooner than expected. And strangely, that pressure has removed some of their uncertainty. When time felt unlimited, they could keep postponing the conversation. Now they cannot. Don't skip, because their first reaction revealed something important. They didn't immediately think about what they might lose by delaying the opportunity. They thought about you. They imagined making the decision first and explaining everything afterward, but that idea felt completely wrong. If they speak only after everything has been decided, the truth between you would arrive too late to matter. So your soulmate has quietly changed the order of events. Before giving anyone else their final answer, they want to give you the honesty they should have offered much earlier. And this is where their carefully prepared question begins turning into something deeper. Your soulmate no longer believes a single question will be enough. They want to tell you what was happening behind the silence. The doubts they never explained, the assumptions they made about your feelings, and the reason they kept convincing themselves that moving forward without you was the mature choice. Stay till the end, because they have finally recognized the contradiction. If leaving this connection behind was truly what they wanted, why did every major step forward make them think about you more? That realization stopped them. They understood that perhaps they weren't trying to move on from you at all. Maybe they were trying to escape uncertainty. And uncertainty can only be answered by truth. So now, instead of protecting themselves from an uncomfortable conversation, they are preparing to walk directly into it. There is only one thing they still refuse to do: they will not tell you what answer to give. Because your soulmate wants whatever happens next to be real. Something huge is waiting for you. They would rather hear an honest answer that changes their expectations than receive comforting words that mean nothing. That is how seriously they are taking this moment. And after finally accepting that, they made another decision. If your response shows that something genuine still exists between you, they will reconsider the future they were preparing to enter. Not impulsively, but honestly, with all the information they should have had from the beginning. Yet there is one detail that makes this even more surprising. While preparing to contact you, your soulmate realized there was something they needed to reveal before asking about your feelings, something about the original reason they considered this life-changing opportunity at all. They had told themselves it was simply about building a better future. But underneath that explanation was another motive, and admitting it to you could change the meaning of their entire decision. The hidden motive was something your soulmate had barely admitted even to themselves. Part of the reason they considered this life-changing opportunity was because they believed a completely new chapter might finally quiet the questions they still carried about you. New surroundings. New responsibilities. A different routine. They thought changing everything around them might eventually change what they felt inside. But as the decision became more real, the opposite happened. Every step toward that future brought your memory closer. Don't skip, because this realization embarrassed them at first. They had been calling the decision moving forward, yet deep down, part of them was using movement as a way to avoid one unfinished conversation. Once they recognized that, they could no longer pretend the choice was completely about opportunity. You were connected to it. Not because you controlled their future, but because the truth between you had never been given a fair chance to exist. That discovery changed what they planned to tell you first. Instead of appearing with a dramatic question and expecting an immediate answer, your soulmate wants to begin with accountability. They want to explain that they made assumptions about your feelings without asking you. They interpreted distance as an ending. They treated uncertainty like rejection because doing so seemed easier than risking vulnerability. Stay till the end, because there is something surprisingly mature about what happened next. They stopped asking themselves, "How do I convince you to choose me?" and replaced it with, "How do I finally tell you the truth without demanding anything in return?" That shift matters. Your soulmate understands that whatever exists between you can only move forward if both people are free to be honest. And suddenly, the biggest decision of their life is no longer simply about staying or leaving. It has become a decision about whether they will continue allowing fear and assumptions to write chapters that honesty should have written instead. Now they have reached the point where preparation is almost over. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has decided what they will say after revealing the real reason behind their hesitation. They want to tell you that if your answer is different from what they secretly hope, they will respect it and make their next decision with clarity. But if you reveal that the connection mattered to you too, they are prepared to reconsider everything before the deadline arrives. And then comes the part they never expected to say aloud. They have already imagined what their first step toward you would look like if that possibility becomes real. It isn't some enormous promise about forever. It is something smaller, more believable, and perhaps much more meaningful, a chance to begin again without pretending the past never happened. But before they can offer that chance, one final question is holding them still, because your answer to it would determine whether they finally step forward or quietly close this chapter themselves. That final question has become the one thing your soulmate cannot answer alone. If we removed every misunderstanding, every assumption, and everything that happened at the wrong time, would you still want to discover what could exist between us? Notice what they are not asking. They are not asking you to promise forever. They are not asking you to erase the past or pretend everything was perfect. They simply want to know whether there is enough truth left between you to deserve another conversation. Don't skip, because something changed inside them when they finally formed that question. For months, they had been searching for certainty before taking any emotional risk. Now they understand that certainty usually comes after honesty, not before it. And suddenly, the biggest decision of their life feels less confusing. Before choosing a future that could take them in another direction, they need to know whether the future they quietly imagined with you was ever possible. What happens next depends on something deeper than a simple yes or no. Your soulmate has decided to listen carefully to what your answer actually means. If you need time, they are prepared to respect that. If you have questions, they want to answer them without hiding behind the old excuses. And if you reveal that you once felt something meaningful but believed they had already moved on, then an enormous misunderstanding may finally collapse between you. Stay till the end, because they recently recognized one detail that makes this possibility feel surprisingly real. Both of you may have been reacting to each other's distance instead of creating it intentionally. One person stepped back because the other seemed uncertain. Then the other stepped back because that distance looked like an answer. If that is what happened, your soulmate knows the connection did not disappear because someone stopped caring. It became trapped inside assumptions neither of you challenged. And now the deadline is approaching fast enough that your soulmate can no longer remain in that pattern. Something huge is waiting for you, because they have finally chosen the moment when they intend to speak. They are no longer waiting for perfect circumstances. They are waiting only long enough to make sure their words come from clarity rather than panic. But while preparing for that conversation, they made one discovery that could change the entire direction of what happens next. The life-changing opportunity they thought required an either-or decision may contain an option they never considered before. There could be a way to pursue what matters to them without automatically closing the door on you. And the moment they realized that, their biggest question changed again. They are no longer asking, "Which future do I sacrifice?" Now they are asking whether you would be willing to explore a future where neither person has to disappear, and the answer may determine the decision they are finally ready to make. That possibility has completely changed the way your soulmate sees the choice in front of them. Until now, they believed every path required losing something important. Choose the opportunity, and perhaps lose the chance to understand what remained between you. Choose you immediately, and perhaps abandon a future they had worked hard to build. But now they have discovered a third possibility. Stop treating the situation like a choice between two worlds and finally have the conversation that could reveal whether those worlds can exist together. Don't skip, because this is the first time your soulmate has felt genuine clarity instead of pressure. They are beginning to understand that the biggest decision of their life should not be made from fear of losing you or fear of losing an opportunity. It should be made after knowing the truth. And strangely, once they accepted that, they stopped rehearsing complicated speeches. They began searching for the simplest words possible, words that would finally show you exactly where they stand. Those words are becoming clearer now. I don't want to decide my future while pretending you don't matter to me. Your soulmate knows that sentence changes everything because it removes the hiding place they have used for so long. No more pretending this connection was insignificant. No more calling unfinished feelings the past simply because time passed. Stay till the end, because they have also realized something they never expected. They do not need you to immediately know where this story is going. They only need both of you to stop guessing. They want a conversation where you can say what was real for you, and where they can finally explain what was real for them. If those truths lead in different directions, at least the mystery ends honestly. But if they point toward the same place, then your soulmate knows the decision waiting for them must be reconsidered with you no longer treated as an invisible part of the equation. Yet just as they began feeling ready, another detail surfaced. Something huge is waiting for you, because the alternative they discovered comes with one condition, one that could make keeping both possibilities alive far more difficult than they first thought. Suddenly, your soulmate understands that having options does not automatically make the decision easier. It only makes honesty more important. They have started asking themselves what they are genuinely willing to change, compromise on, and protect if you tell them the connection still matters. And their answer surprised them. There is one part of their original plan they are already prepared to change before hearing anything from you. They haven't announced it. They haven't made it official. But privately, they have drawn a new line around what they will and will not sacrifice for their future. And when you discover exactly where they drew that line, you may finally understand why they needed you to open this before making their biggest decision. The line your soulmate has drawn is surprisingly clear. They will not build a new future by deliberately leaving an important truth unresolved. That does not mean they have already chosen you, and it does not mean they are abandoning everything they work toward. It means they finally understand what they refuse to carry into their next chapter, regret created by silence. Don't skip, because this decision has changed their behavior in a way even they did not expect. They stopped searching for reasons to delay the conversation and started asking what honesty would actually require from them. The answer was uncomfortable but simple. They would have to admit that you influenced their thinking far more than they ever revealed. They would have to acknowledge that certain memories still matter. And most importantly, they would have to stop pretending their hesitation was only about practical circumstances. There was always another question underneath it. What if there was still something between us worth understanding? That question has now become impossible to ignore, especially because your soulmate has noticed something about the alternative path they recently discovered. It could preserve the opportunity in front of them, but only if they are willing to make adjustments they once considered impossible. Stay till the end, because their reaction to that discovery revealed where their priorities are beginning to shift. Instead of immediately rejecting those adjustments, they started calculating how they could make them work. Why would someone suddenly become willing to reconsider plans they had defended so strongly? Because the possibility of keeping your connection open has changed what feels worth protecting. Your soulmate is not imagining some perfect future where every problem disappears. They know there would still be questions to answer. But for the first time, they are asking whether those questions could be answered together rather than from opposite sides of silence. And there is one adjustment they are now seriously considering that would have seemed completely unrealistic only days ago. That adjustment could give both of you something you never truly had before: time without immediate pressure to define everything. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has begun thinking beyond one emotional conversation. If you reveal that you still want to understand this connection, they are prepared to suggest a slower, more honest beginning, one where neither person makes enormous promises before rebuilding trust and clarity. But there is another reason this matters. While considering that possibility, your soulmate recognized that their biggest decision may not actually be about choosing a destination. It may be about choosing what kind of person they want to become when life demands courage from them. Someone who walks away because uncertainty feels uncomfortable, or someone who finally asks the question they have been carrying for far too long. And now they have chosen which person they want to be. What remains is the move that proves it, and they are closer to making that move than you realize. The move your soulmate is preparing to make is different from everything they imagined before. They are no longer planning to arrive with every answer already decided. Instead, they want to approach you with something far more meaningful: complete honesty about where they stand right now. They want to tell you that a major decision is waiting, that the deadline is real, and that before choosing, they needed to stop pretending your connection had no influence on their heart. Don't skip, because this is where their thinking has changed completely. They once believed admitting uncertainty would make them look weak. Now they see it as the most truthful thing they can do. They do not know exactly where a conversation with you will lead, but they know what silence will lead to. Another unanswered question. And they have finally decided that whatever future they choose, they want to enter it knowing they had the courage to understand what was real between you. Then your soulmate made an even more surprising realization. They had spent so much time wondering what you might say that they had barely considered what they themselves needed to apologize for. Not for having feelings. Not for considering a different future. But for allowing assumptions to speak in places where honesty should have existed. Stay till the end, because they are preparing to acknowledge that openly. They want to tell you they may have misread your distance. They may have expected you to understand things they never actually explained. And they may have disappeared emotionally at moments when what they truly wanted was reassurance. That recognition has softened something inside them. The conversation is no longer about proving who cared more or who misunderstood first. It is about removing the invisible wall built from everything neither of you said. And once that wall is gone, your soulmate believes the answer to their biggest decision may become much clearer. But just before they were ready to make their move, one last complication appeared. Something huge is waiting for you, because someone connected to the opportunity asked your soulmate for a stronger commitment than originally expected. Suddenly, the flexible option they had discovered may not remain open indefinitely. Your soulmate now understands that they cannot keep every door halfway open while waiting for life to decide for them. Soon, they must choose deliberately. Yet instead of pushing you out of the picture, this new pressure has done the opposite. It has made them even more determined to speak before answering anyone else. They have started preparing the exact truth they want you to hear first, and it begins with a confession they have avoided throughout this entire journey. The possibility of losing the connection forever affects them more deeply than they ever admitted. But what they plan to say immediately after that confession may be the line that finally reveals which decision